Hello everyone, my name is Fedor. I'm a second grade student at GSAIS. It's an honor to be at this stage and present about sustainable cities, my research. So as you know, SDGs number 11 is exactly about that. And I would like to talk about sustainable cities from the micro and micro perspective and use the case study of 3 forerunner cities in the West and in the East, and also share some insights from my field work, which is in Japan, in the city of Kitakyushu. So first of all, why do we need sustainability in cities? So of course, cities are the main energy consumers and waste producers. They're also responsible for the most of the carbon emissions in the world. And half of humanity is already living in cities, and the urbanization is only growing. Cities have enormous environmental footprints. So from this perspective, cities are actually essentially unsustainable. However, cities also offer the biggest potential for sustainable development because there are just so many actions we can do in cities to reduce the impact on environment and achieve SDGs. So that is why it is often said that the global effort for sustainability will be won or lost in the world's cities. So I think it is useful to think about sustainable cities both on the macro and micro perspective because, well, some cities, they would claim that they're sustainable, but after some critical inspection, the reality is not so bright. And I think so here's the conceptual diagram, and these are all the countries and the cities inside them that are striving to achieve sustainability through 3 pillars: economic, environment, and society. And inside each country is bounded by the global agreements, such as Paris agreements and SDGs. And in that sense, there is a global trend. But at the same time, each city has their own kind of local circumstances and local pressures and responses. Each city has its own past historical development, and in many ways, that is why each city is characterized by the past developments. And they also tend to utilize the strong points that they have, for example, available resources or accumulated know-hows, so to deal with the local challenges. So when we look at the best practices in some cities, we have to be careful actually because we have to understand that there are local circumstances. But there are still legitimate questions. What are the common enabling factors that help these cities advance sustainability? To answer this question, I have chosen 3 different regions in the world and 3 different cities. These are Stockholm in Sweden, Portland in US, and Kitakyushu in Japan. And I've been asking myself these questions. Why are they sustainable? What are their actions and commitments? What are their local context and historical past development? And the critical perspective and challenges. So first of all, there's not enough time to talk about in detail, so I will just very briefly mention some main factors focusing on greenhouse gas emissions. So Stockholm is a capital of Sweden, and it often wins various ratings of sustainable cities and awards. It also committed to 100% greenhouse gas reduction by 2040, and already achieved 50% so far from 1990s. And it also pledged to be only renewable energy by 2040. All these commitments, however, made possible by the city's local resource endowments, because already 80% is powered by the classical renewable energy, such as hydro energy, and also biomass. Of course, Sweden is abundant in hydro and biomass, so it's kind of hard to transfer the model of Stockholm to other cities. Next city is Portland in the northwest US. It is claimed to be one of the most eco-friendly cities in US. As you know, US is not so good in sustainability on the national level. However, the individual cities are doing pretty good job, actually. Portland is committed to 80% reduction by 2040, and it so far have achieved 15%. But mostly it's praised for its good governance and comprehensive climate plan, which consists of around 100 actions on sustainability. However, there are still various problems such as large inequality in the city and the gentrification problem. So next is Kitakyushu city in Japan. Actually, I'm going to focus on this city in more details just in a while. But talking about greenhouse emissions, it's not so bright. So 50% reduction was pledged, but so far no reduction have been achieved. The reason for that is the Kitakyushu city is an industrial city, which is very energy intensive. So what are the common enabling factors among these cities? So one of these factors is, of course, long history of the environmental action. These cities are not spontaneously sustainable, but they've been doing a lot for long history. And another is a strong collaboration of all stakeholders on all levels, which actually brings up the importance of the SDGs number 17, which has under its targets multi-stakeholder partnerships. So to investigate further the situation on the ground, I'm currently focusing on the city of Kitakyushu. And here are just some insights from the fieldwork. So Kitakyushu is actually the birthplace of the Japanese steel industry. And this is the first blast furnace steel factory. It is actually now restored and designated as a UNESCO site for where the Japanese industrial miracle has originated. However, the miracle, of course, brought also environmental pollution. So the water around the bay in Kitakyushu was called the Sea of Death because the pollution was actually so bad, and the air was similarly bad. And since 1960s to 1980s, the city could overcome pollution by forming strong partnership. It started with the citizen movement who partnered with universities. They performed some research, brought these research results to the city hall, and the city hall pressed the industries and formed partnerships with them to stop the pollution in the city. So it was an example of harmonious partnership, not just blatant opposition. But currently in this century, the city faces economic slowdown and unemployment. So the decision was to focus on recycling. And the city developed the so-called Eco Town, the iconic project of Kitakyushu, first in Japan. They have around 26 recycling factories that focus on various kind of materials from automobiles to medical waste. And also Kitakyushu has been very active with the national government. They have various policies. In 2018, city was designated an SDGs future city. And so what are the actions? So mostly Kitakyushu was very active on environmental technology, and they used their know-how a lot. So for example, the Eco Town focused on recycling. Also, they're developing hydrogen energy with partnering the steel industry because hydrogen is being produced there as a byproduct of the steel production. They also use like smart meters, and but mostly we see these are like the technology measures. So city has been often criticized for not doing enough for society. So one of the ways to address society was robotics, which is again very much a technological fix. But it is also very active in education for sustainable development. It is mandatory now in all public schools in Kitakyushu to have ESD. Also important, of course, for achieving SDGs is the governance. So they opened new frameworks, new platforms for stakeholder engagement and citizen participation. such as SDGs Council and SDGs Club. So new platforms are SDG Promotion Headquarters, which is in a new government office. And SDGs Club is meant to be the place where stakeholders can engage in the policy making. So just some insights from my interviews: City Hall, academia, and business stakeholders. So in the environment, the citizens and the stakeholders, they actually say that, well, the achievements are not actually so great. The city is the example of how not to develop, because the cities have been developing in like the pollute first, clean up later paradigm. So they actually say that you don't have to repeat this mistake, you have to learn from it. Another is that, so as I said, there was no big achievement in greenhouse gas emission reduction because the city is industrial, and it just illustrates how hard it is to address greenhouse gas reduction in the city, which is based on industry. So the city hall mostly responds that the economy is the weakest pillar, and that the environment should be addressed through economic revitalization. And they also have this project to build the wind power park, 30% of to power the city needs of 30% energy. However, nowadays they mostly concerned with this, the money leaking out of the city because they have to buy electricity from big utilities, which has headquarters in Fukuoka City or Tokyo City. And lastly, so in the society, as I mentioned, there is a lot of developments in ESD. However, a lot of educators are not so far aware of SDGs yet. And finally, for the governments, so despite they have all these new frameworks, such as a city SDGs club and for stakeholder participation, so far most stakeholders are just invited to comment on already made policies, not so much in the planning for the future of the city. And the SDGs Council and SDGs Club so far are not really a game changer. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. You can write kanji as well?
A little bit.
Second year. So, very interesting presentation you have. In regards with the city issues, in fact, it's a lot of issues within the city itself. We do have a problem in terms of the waste, energy. Of course, you mentioned about education.
Yeah.
And my question is in related with the energy, because energy is my background. So, is there in any case, education in the Kitakyushu in relate with the, energy daily basis activities or efficiency of utilizing more efficient energy, because we have Japanese have a problem in terms of the utilization of the nuclear power. You have to shut down. You have to reduce the energy consumption from electricity and stuff like that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. You mean whether they use in their education issues of energy, right? I think yes, because energy, of course, is the biggest kind of question of sustainability, as it is responsible for most of the greenhouse gas emissions. And so far, the cities, for example, in the case of Kitakyushu, city's response was mostly kind of like a technological fix. So bring the smart meters into the houses so that citizens can kind of regulate their consumption of energy by themselves. So this was the approach in Kitakyushu. It is also quite questionable because, some cities are not, some citizens are not very happy about these kind of meters, but this is another question. So What about education? I think it is, in Japan, it is addressed a lot because there is a lot of kind of hydrogen energy now is a big topic, and there is a lot of research groups about hydrogen and renewable energy and so on. Yeah, I think in education, energy, of course, is a big topic. If that answers your question. Yeah.